Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with my Warriors of Chaos unit tier list for Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires campaigns. I have to say that doing a tier list for Warriors of Chaos is a rather painful experience when you're talking about Warhammer 3 because the sheer number of units and their variants is just ridiculous. Like, in general, like, just the number of units that Warriors of Chaos has is ridiculous. But then you add in all the variants, and it's like... Yeah, I think Creative Assembly could have done better to organize this in-game at the very least. But yeah, for a tier list, it's just one of those situations. Here's how I'm going to do this. In general, unless a unit gives a certain level of capability or exclusivity from a Monogod, I'm going to go with the undivided version. But there are a bunch of Monogod units that are better than the baseline versions, or the benefits they get for the Monogod are so significant that makes them the best variant of that unit, and that's what I'm going to use. It's basically... The question is like, I'm going to try and use the best version of a unit if it actually has a meaningful upgrade. So let's start with Chaos Chariots. So Chaos Chariots, pretty okay unit. Like if you look at the flanker, and this applies to the Monogods again. So pretty okay unit, pretty good level of damage, dealing capability over there when you're looking at Chaos Chariots in Warhammer 3. Decent level of durability, can do a fairly good job flanking. I would say that one of the downsides with Chaos Chariots is you're kind of going to benefit more from going down the path of Chaos Knights. So when you're looking at Chaos Warriors, one of the things to always consider is like, okay, I get this unit, and then I can upgrade this unit, so am I screwing myself over by getting a specific unit as opposed to, you know, just going down another path and getting some significant benefits later down the line? That is one of the big factors when we're talking about Warriors of Chaos that should be kept in mind. So with Chaos Chariots, decent enough unit. You do have Gore Beast chariots also to take into consideration as an upgrade, which are a better unit, but usually speaking, you're going to be better off going for Chaos Knights because of the upgrade path. And also, some of the variants, some of the Monogod versions of Chaos Knights are just going to be flat out better. Now, with Chaos Knights, the basic unit is fairly good, right? And same with the Lance version. But we do have specific Monogod versions of these units that are just better. So the best regular Chaos Knight unit would be the Khorne one. So Khorne gives you a bit of extra damage, and that can be one of the things that makes Chaos Knights just better. Also, you know, again, upgrade paths. If I'm not mistaken, it's Skull Crusher. So it's like, that is one of the most ridiculous cavalry units you can get in the game, and it's definitely worth it. Also, keep in mind that when you're looking at these kind of units, you can always switch between one specific unit and its variant. But if you're looking to use regular Chaos Knights, which, for the record, I think they're good units, definitely, but I think Chaos Knights with Lances are just the superior unit, and specifically Chaos Knights with Lances of Slaanesh, because Devastating Flanker is a hell of a power increase in your campaign that should not really be underestimated in any way, shape, or form from my perspective. And that is where I stand with regards to Chaos Knights with Lances. Like, Chaos Knights with Lances, Slaanesh is the best. Regular Chaos Knights, I would say Khorne is the best. But yeah, both of them are fairly good cavalry units and will pretty much defeat anything that stands in their path. And on top of that, their sheer level of durability and level of armor makes them extremely good at minimizing casualties in battles and being really good in auto-resolve, which is not something to ignore in a campaign. Then we have Marauder Horsemen, and Marauder Horsemen with thrown weapons. So Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes or regular ones, they're kind of a niche unit that where the only value proposition that they have in a battlefield situation is that they can harass an enemy army and peel off certain portions of it. And of course, you do upgrade them as well into higher end units eventually, getting Chaos Knights. So they are a unit you want to recruit because Chaos Knights are definitely worth it. They are a unit that gives you a certain level of combat capability, a certain niche role, but it is a very niche role, so they're not necessarily a great unit on their own in a lot of different ways. Then we have regular Marauders. So regular Marauders are pretty much F tier, almost never worth caring about in a campaign. Like, you do have the great weapon version, you do have the variants, and from that perspective, even those versions, even the Monogod version. So if we look at Spearman, if we look of Tzeentch, if we look at that kind of situation, I would dare say that for the most part, you're not really going to want to care about Marauders, with the exception of just getting them for the sake of an upgrade. Like, just get them, use them for the sake of that upgrade, and that would be about it during the course of a Warriors of Chaos campaign, from my perspective. Then we go into the Chaos Warriors discussion, and yes, organizing all of this is something of an annoying mess of a situation. So with Chaos Warriors, the best version is Chaos Warriors of Nurgle. If we're talking about Sword and Shield, or Axe and Shield, really, because they get that extra bit of damage dealing capability, and Chaos Warriors themselves are inherently fairly durable as units. Then we do have to talk about the weapon variants. Chaos Warriors of Nurgle with great weapons are the best great weapon version. So you have Undivided, and you also have Nurgle ones. Nurgle is just going to do better, that extra bit of durability, the extra bit of combat capability. Then we have dual wield weapon versions. Like, great weapons, really good. Dual wield, it's better against chaff, but they're not necessarily going to do so well against higher end units. Still a very good unit to have dual wield version of Chaos Warriors of Khorne, specifically right there. Hell Scourges. Yeah, let's talk about Hell Scourges. So Hell Scourges, I would say they're really an F tier unit, especially with Chaos Warriors. Like, if you want something that helps you out in combat in terms of damage dealing capability, you're far better off freaking going with any variant, like great weapons. In fact, I would say, like, if you're playing a Slaaneshi campaign, you're better off going down the path of getting Undivided Chaos Warriors with great weapons, unless you're talking about authority, if that's a consideration. Though, usually you can kind of max out authority even if you get a couple of these units. And also keep in mind, once you dedicate a unit of Chaos Warriors, there's no going back with that. And one of the things I would say, Slaaneshi infantry, like, yeah, Chosen of Slaanesh and Chaos Warriors of Slaanesh, still fairly durable, so that's fine going if you're going with the Sword and Shield version. But if you're going with the Hell Scourge version, not worth it from my perspective whatsoever. Of course, again, you can switch between these two units, so there is that aspect. Then we have Halberdiers. So the best Halberdiers are, again, Khorne. Also an S tier unit, I would say. Partly, you can't upgrade from Chaos Warriors of Khorne with halberds into a Chosen version with halberd. That would probably be the best halberd version of a Chosen unit. It is a rather unfortunate situation that we don't have that kind of unit version. Tzeentch does have it, and yes, it is a good unit. But when you're looking at a line holder type situation, Khorne Chaos Warriors are probably going to defeat any kind of cavalry in the game. Actually, they would defeat any kind of cavalry in the game. Large entities, a bit of a discussion. I think some of them could, do well enough, but for the most part, like Chaos Warriors of Khorne with Halberds are just going to be really good. In fact, you might not even want to upgrade them into Chosen with dual weapons, but that is its own discussion. Yeah, it is that situation. Like, alternatively, you do have Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch with Halberds. I'm going to put these guys as an A tier unit. I would say that they're not as good as the Khorne version. They're more durable, but they don't do as much damage. But you do have an upgrade path for these guys into Chosen. And speaking about Chosen, regular Chosen of Khorne, really good unit. Though Chosen in general are going to, regardless of which variant you're going to talk about, they're all fairly good units. And then Halberds of Tzeentch, the best Halberd version that is available right there. It just because you're talking about a Chosen unit with a Halberd, high-end unit that is just going to do extremely well regardless of what they're facing. You do have Undivided if you want to go down that path. Yes, I'm moving certain things around. This is a nightmare, suffice to say. This is genuinely a nightmare to really sort out. There's that. I'm reminded of that cinematic from or that trailer for Team Fortress 2, where it's like, kill me now, please. That's kind of how I feel trying to sort all of this out. Okay, Forsaken. I would say Forsaken for the Monogods. Some of them are useful, some of them are not so useful. But Forsaken in general, I would put an F tier for Chaos Warriors. I don't think it is ever worth going down a Forsaken path, because you can easily get Chaos Warriors, and Chaos Warriors generally are going to be the better unit compared to Forsaken. Again, for Monogod situation, like, they're okay as a unit, but due to the upgrade path that is available for Chaos Warriors, definitely would go down that specific path. By the way, Marauders with dual weapons, again, just they're not terrible units. Like, the Monogod versions are not terrible. But just like, it's a filler unit that you just get because you replace. I mean, if you want to talk about a unit you can recruit very quickly without any kind of limitations, you're going to talk about Trolls. We'll get into that in just a second. But yeah, Forsaken as a whole, not really worth considering from my perspective. Then we have Chaos Shrine. It is a buff. Yes, I know it can change depending on what we're talking about, but for the most part, with Chaos Shrines, I'd just say very limited use situation when we're talking about them, and you're just better off getting a regular unit as opposed to picking up any Chaos Shrine. That's where I stand. Then we have Chaos Furies. Yes, you do have flying capability, and that could seem useful in some cases, but I just find Chaos Furies to not really be worthwhile to bring in an army situation. That's my perspective on that subject. With regards to them, just not really a great unit to talk about, I think, when we're talking about Chaos Furies. Then we have the Gore units. Let me just sort these guys out. I'm missing the Slaanesh one. I guess I'll just add those in a bit. We do have, like, Nurglings, so I'll sort out the Slaaneshi stuff that got added and tied to Torment, like I'm missing that. But yeah, Nurglings, F tier unit, never worth recruiting during the course of a campaign, never worth really using, I would say, in a campaign situation from my perspective with Chaos Warriors. Then we have Tzaangors. So Tzaangors, kind of C tier unit. Like, if you're talking about Tzeentch, Tzaangors are fairly decent in a Tzeentch campaign, but given the sheer number of Chaos Warriors, like, would you rather get Chaos Warriors that you can then switch to a great weapon version if you're talking about Undivided or all the different Monogod versions? For Tzeentch itself, it's the question of Tzaangors versus Forsaken. That's the comparison. So for Tzeentch, Tzaangors end up being more useful. For Warriors of Chaos, be it Undivided or the Monogod version, like if you're playing a village campaign, even in a village campaign, I just don't think Tzaangors are really worth bothering with. Then we have Khorngors. They're the more durable version of a Gore unit. They're decently fast. They have so decent survivability, decent level of damage, but still get eclipsed by Chaos Warriors. Then we got Pestigors. I'm gonna say Pestigores are a D tier unit. They're just not worth using. Like, if you want a gore unit, like, again, Corngores, Sangores can provide some usefulness. Like, Pestigores, I have neither the damage dealing capability or the survivability that you talk. Slangores, if you want to know my opinion on those guys, definitely an F tier unit from my perspective on the subject. Regular Bloodletters, let's go with that. F tier unit. I don't think, like, partly, remember, you have limited gifted slots, so are you going to use the gifted slot for a unit like this, or would you rather get something much better? Exalted Bloodletters are a better unit that you can definitely use, but even so, I think the issue that they have in Auto-Resolve combined, again, with those limited gifted slots, and even if you're playing Bellicor, like, if you're playing Bellicor, Bloodletters are the only, Exalted Bloodletters are the only unit that are really worth recruiting to some extent. Yes, we can talk about, to some extent, we can talk about getting regular Bloodletters early on in a campaign, but because, again, they're the only useful units, but still. Like, even in Bellicor campaign, I'd rather invest my resources and my unit slots into getting as many Marauders into Cast Warriors, and that generally is going to be better. I forgot to put in Chosen of Khorne with dual weapons, so yeah, these guys are pretty good. I know, it's a mess of an organization over here. Yeah, say hello to the hell that is trying to sort all of this out. Okay, what next? Like, I should just have some dice rolling going on here. It's like, which unit am I going to cover next over here? Like, with horrors, I'm just going to say all the horror versions are just F tier. They're not worth using. Like, you could say, oh, they're decent range units. I'm like, look, guys, let me just say it like this. They're not decent range units. They will lose to any actual ranged unit in the game. They will not support your army lines very well, and you're far better off investing into Marauders and Marauder horsemen and trolls than you will ever be into blue horrors. That is where I stand on that subject. Very simply. Skull cannons, 8 S tier unit. Amazing artillery piece, replenishes ammunition, decent enough in melee. So it's like, in melee, I kind of view it as a shotgun artillery, or shotgun chariot, really, I guess, is probably the best way to kind of describe a skull cannon. But yeah, high level of damage, mobility, which actually gives it this high level of survivability as an artillery piece, just having that extra mobility, because you're not going to get into artillery duels, or if you go into an artillery duel with the skull cannon, it's just going to close the gap and kill you in melee. Be afraid, be very, very afraid of that situation. Cockatrice, I would say B tier. So B tier in the sense that it does give you a flying capability, and it's pretty decent enough unit at doing damage. Demonic, sure, gifted slots. You might ask, well, what do you want to use gifted slots on? It's like, one of the things is a skull cannon. The other thing is dragon ogres and dragon ogre shagoff. So cockatrices can be a bit annoying. Like, another thing to point out, when you're looking at getting these kind of demonic units through gifts, that you only have so many souls in a campaign. And yes, you can rush things and get them quickly and all that, but think of it from this perspective. What is the most... where are you going to get the most benefits from using souls? And I'm going to say it. You're going to benefit a lot more from focusing on Undivided, because dragon ogres and hell cannons. So remember that. Then you're going to benefit a lot from skull cannons. Then you're also probably going to benefit from Nurgle. Not because necessarily of the units, but because of the growth that Nurgle gives you. So with Nurgle, you kind of want that growth. So if you're going to get a unit of Nurgle, so either you keep that growth on permanently, or you switch it up, or you get multiple slots with Nurgle to unlock various units. And I think there are some good units of Nurgle, like Rod Knights. Definitely an S tier cav unit, very durable, monstrous cav, holds its own very effectively in a melee situation. really kills everything that's inside. Like kills infantry, kills cavalry, just gets a great job done. Centaurs, yeah, I know. F tier is gonna be filled to the brim on this list. I'm sorry. There's just a lot of useless units, so Centaurs have neither durability or damage dealing capability. You might talk about speed, but there are fast moving units of Slanesh if you want to get, and I know, you could talk about like Siege, Village. Even in a Village campaign, I'm just like, if you want the fast moving unit, there's some better options like Screamers of Siege, which I would put at A tier. Like if you want the fast moving unit that can chase down enemies, like Screamers of Siege will just do that job better compared to Centaur. So I don't really see a value proposition in that. Then we have Skull Crushers. Yes, Skull Crushers, S tier unit, really solid combat unit in general. Just one of the best cavalry units. Like Run Knights, Skull Crushers just do a phenomenal job. Yeah, you gotta feel bad for Siege. I know, Siege does have Doom Knights and all that stuff, but there it is, actually. So, Siege, yeah, Doom Knights, flying cav unit that's capable of taking down elites. Or do you consider the cav unit, or do you consider flying infantry? I'm not sure exactly what I would go with. Personally, I'd probably consider it flying infantry more so than anything, though it does have a fairly good amount of speed. I'm not sure I would consider cavalry because I don't think it has the shock value capability to justify considering a cavalry. Then we have Plague Ogres. So the regular Plague Ogre version, B tier unit that is okay, has the ogre benefits of charging, has decent level of durability. They're kind of the equivalent of man-eaters. They're not as good as man-eater variants, but I would say they're better than regular man-eaters for ogres. Great weapons, can do a good amount of damage, can really prove their worth in a battlefield situation. And, if you're looking at Nurgle, there's some really cool stuff with regards to Nurgle, like Bile Trolls. I would say Battle Trolls go and see. They're not a terrible unit, but they're also not as fantastic as some other stuff that you can get during the course of a campaign. So I'm going to probably put those guys down a bit. Blood Beasts, yeah, F tier unit. I have never understood the value of Blood Beasts in a campaign situation. I guess there's more use of them in multiplayer, but still. Then we have Skull Reapers of Khorne. So the way you should view Skull Reapers, they're a cast warrior of Khorne with dual weapons with a bit less armor. They're still fairly high armor, but more damage. And that's the way you should view Skull Reapers. Then we have Wrathmongers, one of the best infantry freaking units in the game. And probably the best infantry unit in the game, actually. Like, I don't think there's anything that can defeat a Wrathmonger in a pure infantry contest. Yes, I know, we can talk about champions of Slanesh and all that, but I would put my money on Wrathmongers. I'm not quite sure on how it works out. One of the things you do consider when you're building a Khorne army, however, is army synergy. So, yeah, I know, it's a mess of a situation. It's actually a lot better in the game when you're trying to sort this entire freaking mess out. Let's put, then we have Hell Cannon, amazing artillery piece in general, just high level of damage, arcing shot, crew that survives, so it's not the demonic artillery piece. It has a high level of survivability, and it won't rout, so very difficult to deal with a Hell Cannon. So they got both survivability and damage dealing capability, and it is the unit you want to invest in when you're looking to unlock various things in a campaign. Then we have the Hell Riders, Hell's Riders, whatever, of Slanesh. Both of them, like, I'm just gonna say they're both F tier units. Like, low level of armor, not worth it ever picking up in a campaign. Demonettes, look, for Slanesh, Demonettes are great units, especially for the mask. Like, their high level of damage, high level of speed is great, but for Warriors of Chaos, again, you're better off focusing on a Chaos Warrior army and focusing on that. And if you're focusing on gifted, and like, Demonettes would work if you could mask them, but even as Be'lakor, you got better options. And Exalted Demonettes, better unit, sure, but still. Fiends of Slanesh, not worth the slot. And Slash is kind of one of those things where investing souls in their gifts, like their campaign benefits are not necessarily great. That is a trade-off right there that I don't think it is worth making during during the course of a campaign situation. But that's my stance. Oh Jesus, am I missing Blood Crushers? Do they even have Blood Crushers? Manticore, Feral Manticore, an uncontrollable fighting unit, just never really worth investing into this one ever in a campaign. Hound-wise, I would say the Hounds of Khorne are probably the best Hounds in the game. Like, you could talk about the poison that Nurgle brings, but just damage-dealing capability Hounds of Khorne are probably the best. But still, not a great unit. And Gorebeast Chariots, yeah, they're okay. They're an upgrade, but I think you're better off going with Cast Knight, so that's why I'm going to put them in B tier. Flesh Hounds, also not really a unit worth investing in from my perspective. Just a unit that lacks a good amount of durability and even has the downside of being demonic. So not great to focus on. Plague Bearers, again, not worth it. Exalted Plague Bearers, a bit better, I would say, especially because they're a range attack, so they do offer some of that capability. Beast of Nurgle, no. Like, for Nurgle itself, there's an argument to be made about Beast of Nurgle because of its durability, but it's like, you want durability, it's all the way up here. You're better off focusing on that stuff. And especially keep in mind, you can have as many mortal units as you want, but you have limits on demonic units unless you're Be'lakor. And again, even for Be'lakor, you're better off with certain other things. Certainly not Plague Toads. Like a weak-ass, slow-moving monster unit, that's just not worth it. Wrathflies, same situation. Death's Heads, Death's Heads, I would say they have the benefit of being a flying unit, giving that capability as a flying unit, and range attack, so they can be pretty useful. Maybe, in fact, they would even deserve a B tier slot in terms of the benefit that they would provide. Like, again, this is like the reason you might want to focus on some units, because you got so many freaking choices, it's not even funny. Spawn-wise, honestly, I think all the spawns are worthless, but I'll probably go with... Honestly, I'm not sure who the freaking hell... Like, let's say with Khorne, right? Spawns are not worth the investment. Forsaken are not worth the investment, and you need to go through... Like, you can get spawns for regular recruitment. I guess at most you would consider it a filler unit, but that's really where I would draw the line on that specific subject. Oh man, there's so much stuff. Soul Grinders. Soul Grinder of Nurgle. Best Soul Grinder version, by far the only one that's really worth investing. To some degree, the Khorne one is okay, but unless you're playing one of the Monogods, like if you're playing Tzeentch or Slaanesh, I would not bother with Soul Grinders. If you're going Khorne, sure, but if you're playing Undivided, go with Nurgle. It's just the better one, the best one, and the one worth investing. Even if it screws over your authority a bit, it's still really worth it. Like, here's something I would say with regards to authority. You're far better off going down the path of having Khorne authority than anything else. Sure, you may not have the best Halberdiers, but think of it. You get Skull Crushers in a campaign, you get Wrathmongers, you get Great Chosen. You don't get great weapon versions, sure. Cavalry-wise, like my favorite army of Warriors of Chaos is to go Khorne with Slaaneshi Cavalry, but adding in a Soul Grinder of Nurgle is definitely very okay in that. Mutalisk Brutar, a big and powerful single entity that's pretty good in a campaign situation. The one downside, like I would even put the test here, but there's one big downside with it. You have to go Tzeentch. And Tzeentch is not really appealing from the sake of gifted units, or certainly the campaign gifts. Like, unit-wise, different discussion, but... I mean, yes, I know you have the Exalted Demon of Tzeentch, but I think it's just not really the best. Like, let's talk about the Exalted Demon. Bloodthirster, D tier. Like, yeah, you gotta feel bad for the Bloodthirsters as a unit. They don't just offer enough as a kind of unit that would be worth it. Same with Great Unclean Ones. Keeper of Secrets. Oh yeah, I really like me some Keeper of Secrets. The one downside the Sinnelleos gifts, like getting those souls for Sinnelleos gifts, it kind of feels like wasting our time with a lot of the stuff that Sinnelleos gets as gifted units. But at the same time, Keeper of Secrets is a really, really good single entity unit. It really punches above its weight. It feels like a greater demon of a specific faction, unlike all the others in the game. And that is not something to sneeze at. Then we have Dragon Ogres. So Dragon Ogres are relatively easy enough to acquire and pretty decent unit. Not the best units, but decent enough in a combat situation. Certainly are worth the recruitment slot, the gifted slot, until you can replace them with some other things. And that brings us to the Dragon Ogre Shoggoth. I would even put it in S tier. You're going to benefit a lot from getting a lot of gifted, like you get Hell Cannons, you get Shatterstone, you get a combination of both campaign benefits and great units if you go undivided. And Dragon Ogre Shoggoths and Hell Cannons are always worth it. In fact, once you have multiple undivided gifts unlocked, you might just want to do a rotation to do, Hell Cannons and Dragon Ogre Shoggoths. You're not going to regret that decision. Toad Dragons, again, A tier unit, though maybe even S tier really with that, just because Toad Dragons are ridiculous and Nurgle is always worth focusing on. Soul Grinders and all that. Slaughter Brute, it's a pretty powerful single entity. I'm not quite sure I would rank it as S tier. But yeah, there's a combination of some really crazy good stuff over here and some really worthless stuff. Cast Giants, they did add old Wall Breaker, but you do have Shatterstone as Warriors Gas, and you do have, depend on who you're playing. Actually, as all of them, you have Hell Cannons available, though you may not start with one. That's kind of one of the downsides with the Monogods compared to Undivided. Like, if you play Undivided, you get the Hell Cannon as a starting unit. If you're playing one of the Monogods, you're not going to get so it's... Oh, here's a Blood Letter. Could I have a Hell Cannon, please? No. Blood Crushers, I'd say it's an F tier unit. It's not as good as a cavalry unit as some other things. Okay, let's be fair. It's not terrible. It's okay. Let's go in deep, but it's not fantastic. Rot Knights, okay-ish unit, but it gets eclipsed by all this other stuff that you do have available in a campaign. Heartseekers of Sinnelleos, high level of damage, can be extremely useful in a campaign. Again, eclipsed by some other cavalry units as well. Like, don't compare like, oh, you're putting Heartseekers in C and you're putting Screamers. They have very different roles. Like, if I'm comparing Heartseekers or anything, I'm comparing them to, well, Dragon Ogres are very easy to acquire because you can get them through Warband recruitment, potentially. And then you also have cavalry-wise so much better cavalry that's just going to dominate things. This brings me to... Where are the trolls? So, trolls. Regular cast trolls are fairly okay. They'll get the job done. Armored cast trolls are S tier. There's a whole bunch of reasons for it. One, you have no limitation on how many of these guys you can have in a campaign. Two, it's very easy to acquire trolls in a campaign and then upgrade them to armored cast trolls because you only need rank 3. And armored cast trolls, I would say, are the best trolls in the game. They're most durable, they do a high level of damage. Yes, they don't have some of the special abilities like, say, Bile Trolls. But from my perspective, if I'm going to get the troll unit... if I'm going to get the troll unit, it is going to be armor cast trolls. They're just that great. Stone trolls, I guess, are a bit more durable, but they don't have the same damage dealing capability as these guys. Okay, what else have I forgotten about? I know, it's like, I feel like there's some stuff that's missing from this list, and I'm trying to figure out what. Alright, let's go with the Chariots of Sinnelleos. I really want to like the Chariots of Sinnelleos because they are high level of damage, so Hellflayers, Seeker Chariots, Exalted Seeker Chariots, so I'm just going to consider that slot for all of those. The benefit that they bring is that they're very high level of damage. There's fewer entities per unit, so they don't have pathfinding issues. So they can do a high level of damage and can be extremely useful. But they also are demonic, and that kind of is something that ruins them because of a durability concern that these guys do have. All right. All right, do I not have Changebringers over here? I'm trying to see them. Like, I know Changebringers are what? Village exclusive. So we got Flamer. Let's go with the Flamers. I'd say Flamers are B. With Changebringers, I think it's only Village that has it. With Wrathmongers, yeah, I know limitations on recruitment. With Changebringers, they would be an S tier unit if I could damn find them on this list. Unfortunately, I don't have them. But with Flamers of Siege, can do a good level of damage dealing capability, but they do have the problem that, especially with the Warriors of Chaos Army, you're really focused on melee units. So for Dwarves, Flamethrowers, Iron Drakes are extremely useful because you're playing more defensively or playing more ranged. Whereas for Warriors of Chaos, you want to play more aggressive, so you do end up having issues with line of sight in terms of being able to get those flamers to fire. Yeah. What else is there? Well, I think there is the Siege units, and yes, I am missing Changebringers. Though, look, let me say it like this: Valkia is a great campaign. She's really good. She has a really great time. The other ones, the other Monogods, Festus is pretty good. Village is pretty shit. So it's kind of sad that one of the most mediocre campaigns in the game, and I do consider Village one of the most mediocre ones, has such a great unit as freaking Changebringers. Or that the Demon Prince has freaking Changebringers. No, I'm not doing a Demon Prince unit tier list. I'm not doing a tier list for a campaign that basically is like, why in the fuck would you ever want to play them? Then we have Aspiring Champions. So, Aspiring Champions, there's two ways of viewing these guys. The baseline version is okay, and pretty solid, gets the job done, handles pretty much anything. The upgraded version of Aspiring Champions, once you get all the brandings, all the marks, which does take a while, emphasis on that, they are an S tier unit without a doubt. But that takes dozens and dozens of turns in a campaign, and given the nature of Warriors of Chaos campaigns, I would say you're better off not necessarily focusing on that. Like, I would personally prefer going down a Monogod path with my units than going with Aspiring Champions, though once you get all those upgrades, definitely a very different calculation in terms of how you build an army from that point on. Okay, and anything else? I mean, there is still plenty of stuff. All right, so we're just down to the Slaaneshi unit, so let me just add those right here so I can talk about them. So a couple of units left. We do have Marauder Horsemasters. These guys, you do need to get them to get Chaos Knights, and they're okay. They're not phenomenal. They're okay. Just try and keep them alive. It's very important to keep them alive in order to upgrade them. They will do reasonably well in the early game, and you do get a huge benefit by recruiting them later on in a campaign. You do need to go down that upgrade path. With Changebringers, I was actually wrong. You can recruit Changebringers as Undivided Warriors of Chaos. Obviously not as the Monogods, but yeah, phenomenal unit. Flying Flamethrowers have all the benefits of regular Flamethrowers, but because they're flying, they don't have the same kind of line of sight issues. So Changebringers are just freaking awesome. Slangors, never worth recruiting in any Warriors of Chaos campaign or even Slaaneshi campaigns. Like a relatively light infantry unit that's pretty mediocre across the board. They're the worst of all the gore units by far. Champions of Slaanesh, an amazing infantry unit. We have a discussion between them and Wrathmongers. Still a really good unit. Definitely worth recruiting. Definitely worth getting. Chimera, same situation. So chimeras give you a really good level of flying capability if you want that. So to harass the enemy backline, to really be an annoyance in sieges if Shatterstone is not enough for you. Pleasure Seekers of Slaanesh. Yeah, one of the better cavalry units in the game. What do you want me to say? Pretty good units. Like overall, there's a combination of really good shit over here or really bad stuff, and kind of lacking in between, if you notice. Like, yeah, there's like cash giants. Let's talk about those for a second, because I think it is worth mentioning this. So cash giants have an inherent benefit because they have Wallbreaker now, though again with Shatterstone that makes them less useful at, would say, Norska. But at the same time, just being able to break multiple walls is always going to be inherently useful creating those kind of openings. But on the flip side, you do also have artillery as warriors of chaos, so a bit limited. But Wallbreaker is one of those abilities that should never be underestimated, because if you're not spending your artillery destroying walls, not spending their ammunition destroying walls, and you're going to use it for battlefield benefits, even in sieges, and that makes it kind of useful to have cash giants. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Yeah, I know this tier list is ridiculous, suffice to say. I'm sure there will be plenty of people with very different opinions on many things, but this is where I stand. Costin, signing out.